No one dying to jump in?
I actually don't have a comment, but I wanted to ask Hannah and Kiki to comment on their comment earlier in the chat. So I wanted to ask them if they don't mind sharing their thoughts, because you were talking about kind of the difference between job, looking for a job, and the difference between maybe like practice. So if you don't mind sharing that and elaborating a little bit.
Yeah, I think because we're both currently looking for jobs. So although we love the core and the values of community psychology, others don't understand that. So the competencies, when used as in that sense, it makes sense. But we understand how it doesn't, like we're here in the call because we understand the importance of the changes made. So maybe if we decide on coming up with different names that for the purpose of the competencies, rather than just have a global thing, something that is for us, that is fostering the sense of community and relations and all of these core values that are so embedded in us, versus something for the outside, for our, if you want, the marketing of community psychology. Keandra, you want to say something?
No, I agreed. I agreed with what I believe Nicole had said about kind of coming up with the redefinition of the competencies before changing the term to capacities or whatnot.
But, and Gloria makes the point, and maybe she wants to make it directly, that, you know, when you go to graduate school, you invest all that time and money. And if you're not going to get an academic job, and that's really a critical piece, because a lot of the practice that we talk about in community psychology is done by faculty who've got a solid salary behind them, then you got to be thinking about, you know, who's going to pay the bills? How am I going to get shoes on my kids' feet? And so we're trying to, you know, I think a lot of this is not either or, but both. You want to elaborate on that, Gloria, or just?
Can't think of a thing to add.
Okay.
I'm pragmatic, and you know, the reality is, I just happen to have picked this particular field because I love to do it. I was a community organizer before I went back to graduate school, and that had real meaning and consequence for me. I'm not part, although now I'm retired, and I really don't earn money for, I get a check in my money deposited in my bank account, fortunately, so I can be out there again doing what I want to do without having to worry about money. But you know, there's still other rewards that I need, and that that's important to me.
I think Gloria makes a really important point in that some of us that came from less advantaged backgrounds, the making money part is kind of important to us, and being able to somehow, you know, we were drawn to this work because this is what we want, you know, something mattered to us that pushed us toward this work. But at the same time, we have that realistic, we have to earn a living and we have to build retirement. And that's just a reality. So we need to also find a way to help this field if we're going to attract and be able to bring in people from less advantaged backgrounds. They have to know that they're going to be able to make a living doing this. And they have to know how to market that and how to find a job with it, because they need that opportunity and deserve that opportunity to build wealth and have comfortable retirements, and, you know, pass something along to their families that maybe they weren't able to have in their own lives.
And we don't talk enough about the conflicts that come up with being a consultant and your values. But you often are hired to do something that sounds like it's okay in the beginning. And then you say, well, this looks like you really need to address the issue of race. And they say, oh, we don't do that. And, you know, there are contracts like that I've just walked out of. Now, as a retired person, my bumper sticker says, my pro bono practice is booming. And that gives you a lot of license to do whatever you want with your values, because you're not accountable to someone who's paying you. But
Yeah.
we need to talk more about if you're going to be in that world, how do you balance the values with needing to make a living?
Well, I think as a consultant, I'll say that you have to be very explicit with any contract as to what your boundaries are. But when your boundaries are crossed, you have to be willing to walk out. A community psychology colleague and I walked away from a $400,000 contract a couple of years ago because when we called out colonization practices and told them that we weren't comfortable being part of a project that would allow that to continue, they came back at us like that wasn't our business, that wasn't our place. We were there to evaluate, and we were like, no. And we walked out. We left it. We left money on the table and walked away because we did feel that need. So there is that tension between being able to make, that was a pretty darn big contract to walk away from, but
So,
you have to be willing to do that.
we were aware that taking the last minutes to talk about what are going to be the next steps. And one of the things we haven't mentioned, and Nicole's the center of all this, is that the Global Journal is in the midst of doing 3 special issues. One that SCRA and Jerry and Jessica and Dominique are putting together on anti-racist praxis, and one on decoloniality, and one on revisiting the definition. And just the one on anti-racism practice, I saw the table of contents, and it's just a knockout in terms of, and then we had a wonderful discussion last month in the conversation on it. The decoloniality is similar, has wonderful papers, and I'm trying to figure out when they're going to be willing to do a conversation with us. And the practice one is also moving along. Interestingly, when people are asked to redefine practice, the major themes are around anti-racism and decoloniality. So it's infiltrating everything. And so, the question is, how do we move forward? You're going to have a book and, a version of this in a journal that has a lot of different definitions in it. So it's not going to lead to one definition. And I think we can go back to how we got the original definitions, which was we got an informal group to work on it. It was across councils, and we produced some versions that we put out at conferences and to colleagues, and then ultimately to the membership and to the executive committee, and they got endorsed. So I see it, and people have talked about we need an organic process to look at the word competency. And I think the question is, can we get some people who are willing to be part of that process and help us think through how to make it happen and how to engage all the people who have to be engaged? Does that make sense? Is that a fair summary, Nicole, Susan?
Oh, can I share something here, Tom? And so here is what I think we may want to confront is I don't have them in front of me right this minute. The competencies themselves, is it like 18 or something to that end? So I think one of the things that we want to look at is who put them together initially. And one of the things that comes to mind when I shared that is, was it really a collective um, process? And I don't know that it was, and I mean collective in every aspect of anything we could think of that we're facing right now, including colonization ideology, including white supremacist ideology, etc. I don't know because I wasn't there. But if it was not collective to that end, and I think then we need to think about putting together a team that will look at them. And if so, you know what, I can't pull them up and put them on my other monitor. So let me do that. Because if that's so, because I look at them and I can't say that I think, they encompass everything I would think of as a community psychologist, right? And not that they're supposed to, I get that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not looking at a larger list, but I am thinking about a more collective list or more collective language in terms of the lens that people look through, that community psychologists look through, because we all don't look through the same lens. So when I think we've got enough people sitting at the table that says, okay, my lens is represented there, then maybe that's a way. I'm not, saying that should be, but I'm just saying, when you've got enough lens at the table, or you can see a document that you can see the lens of a numerous people, whether it's SES or ethnicity, whatever, that might be, then I think, maybe that's a place to start from, or a framework to start from. So I don't just think that competencies will make the difference, will be the dividing factor, or so to speak, of okay, we've got a new name now, it's called continuum of something, or whatever that might be. So I don't know that. And if we don't do that here, then I think we're reproducing colonialism ideology, or we're just reproducing with a new name. And that is the face that we're faced with, that we're confronted with right this minute, from my perspective. And so Tom asked a question earlier about when we go into the community in practice, makes sense, praxis or practice. We are saying, people are saying, or, well, what do you do as a community psychologist, or what do you bring to the table? And I think one of the things that we bring to the table is I'm going back to building relationships, because that's not, everybody's not going to walk up to the table, or to a job prospect, or to a job interview and say that, because they really don't know how to do that. That hasn't been part of a list, right? A standardized list of skill sets, etc. And so, I come back to that because, again, two things. One is, it should be somewhere within the framework, I'll call it. And then, again, teaching students, or making that part of our pedagogy and our curriculum. That's another space too, to really add that in. And so I do want to also just quickly add, and allow someone else to definitely share, is to Vernita's point about money. I absolutely agree. Not that we don't all need to pay the bills, but Ola had a great point about not everybody is financially secure in academia, and everybody's not making 4, 6 figures and putting away money so that they, whatever that might look like. Because we have to remember, again, we'll bring this back to the table. Everybody doesn't get a tenure track position at Harvard or Yale or whatever institution that might be. Here is where I want to bring us back to the table, our colleagues, that's what we always want to be bearing in mind, is why we're here as well. Not just to make competencies so students can make money, but to also bring us always back to the space of inclusivity. And so that more people of color and more people of whatever they might be are earning that type of money, so that they can retire as well. And this isn't to diminish Gloria's point, but it also, again, I'm always going to be somebody that comes back to the table that's going to bring that lens. So if that's helpful, great. If not, then, I get that too. I respect that as well.
It's all helpful. And the question really is, how do we have a process that gets to hear all the voices? And, I would love to get your thoughts on how we get all those voices. Now it's not into the room, but into the Zoom. So
right. Yes.
So that we can.
I commit to helping bring those voices to the table. One of
Great.
them is mine. Not that I speak for everybody of color, but certainly I will add my name to the pot as to how to work to bring inclusivity and the lens of, and this is not just ethnically, that I got a lot of lens that I don't even talk about. I come from some places, right, that, you know, certainly I am willing to come to the table to, you know, I appreciate the process again. So I don't want to diminish again money or, you know, compensation, but at the same time, it's easy to reproduce colonialism. So.
I'll jump
Well,
in after
it
Al.
was all that. And I brought that business about finding jobs up in the context of those days. I don't think we need to focus or assume that that is the major motivator of what we're trying to accomplish now, but it was one of the big things then.
Well, Susan, we need to figure out if we can get an interim group of people who will look at what process we should develop so that we can involve as many people as possible in terms of rewriting. And I don't think it's just a question of let's just, you know, tweak the words. We should, as we had with the discussion of competency, we can dump the whole word and sort of say, you know, it may be premature to call it that, but we also have to give something into the hands of the people who graduate that they could bring to an employer or to a consultancy. So there are a lot of things that have to be balanced. And right now, the question is, if we made a call for a process, you know, what would people think? Hannah, do you want to speak on that?
Oh, no, this is Kiki. I was just agreeing with what you were saying.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Well, so I'll speak on it. I think, you know, this is my industrial organizational psychologist popping up. I think that what you created here today is the perfect foundation for it, because obviously this has been an open forum. I think we need to do it just to do these, try to arrange them at times where students, all different levels of people can meet, and then continue to have a couple of these type of forums where we can talk openly without judgment. We can really address the issues. Some of us will listen, some of us will chime in, and kind of just balance it that way. And then if you're recording it, then there's that documentation, but somehow have the information synthesized. I also think we need like gatekeepers and those people who can, call out when we go to colonization, because it's so in our blood and in our existence that, like, I catch myself doing it every day. Colonizer comments, colonizer activities. And I know what we said about compensation, but I'm telling you, the structure of earning money, stocking it up, and saving it for retirement is a colonizer practice. Please, we need all of us to read all of these texts that are out there, cast by Isabel Wilkerson, Stand from the Beginning, the 1619 Project, and you will understand the structure of money in this country and how it literally it destroys us, and it makes us not be able to think about the loving, wonderful reasons why we want to support the world. So I'm saying that's one piece that really can help inform the competencies, is understanding that the structure. So I'm on board to join this, and I think creating these spaces again is going to help.
I agree with that to some extent, Vernita, but I'm going to have to push back, because as someone who is very close to retirement now, I can't ignore those structures. I have to eat. I have to live. And for a lot of other people, this is the way our world is right now, and it'd be great to work toward changing it. But we also have to make sure that people can continue to eat, and especially into their older years.
Right.
Well,
So
we're
trust
doing
us.
a good
Trust
job
us.
Okay,
of
so
labeling the dimensions where there's tension.
Yeah, and trust us that we're looking to create a world where that doesn't have to be, right? Because that's what causes all this stress and causes this othering. So and it's not a thing that we have to take off the table.
No,
we have to find a center, a space for it. But I'm saying you have to trust that there are those of us who exist who are not, I'm not going to see people going through this anymore, but we have to, like Jerry said, we have to pull ourselves out of it, get relational and pull ourselves out of some of these structures. And there's some of us that have to think that way so that we can start shaping something different. Because, you
Okay,
know, and I'm 100% behind you, Susan. I understand what you're saying. And I'm saying, just give me the space to help us see a different vision.
Okay, I'm going to move this forward. We've got to wrap up because our time is up. Tom, do you think it's good if everybody would just email?
Well, let me just see if people raise their hands, if they're willing to be part of a follow-up discussion to this in puzzling how to move forward.
Okay, I did not record. I forgot to hit record.
No, it was.
Wait, it
it's not-
says it's recording. Somebody did hit record.
Yeah, no, but it's Jadwiga from SCRA, but she came in late.
It was me and I came in late.
So we only have the end part of this one.
I took really good notes. I'm glad to share.
I'm
Oh,
sorry?
good, because I am so sorry, everybody.
You recorded it?
I recorded like all of the chat and typed
Yeah,
as people were talking.
Save the
Okay,
chat.
good. So what we can do is we can make this the April discussion. I'm sure that the people doing the decoloniality issue will be thrilled not to have to present next month because they were trying to push it off anyhow. And we'll have them do it in May, and we'll take the April meeting, which will be a Friday at noon. I'll look at the calendar to see what's opening. And I know that the very last Friday is a possibility. And we'll reconvene, and we'll, if some people could help us think through what would be a good agenda to get this focused on how we move this forward, I'd love to, Susan and I would love to hear your thoughts. Any other closing comments? You know, this is that we had another discussion recently. Oh, go ahead, Amber.
I was going to say, with the working group, can that opportunity be made to the whole listserv in case there's others that want to participate, but they're unable to attend
Sure.
Yeah.
the Zooms?
Well, it's not going to be a working group as much as it's going to be the next conversation. And we can make it clear that it is the Being Able working group. And I would like to make sure that we get a very clear invitation to SCRA, public policy, some of the other work groups,
Yeah.
so that they join in. And if,
Yeah,
you know, if
I
it gets
think-
too big, we'll use Vernita's great style of small groups, and we'll break it up and with some questions, and we'll move it forward. But I think we're onto something. And this is very exciting. I love the energy. I love the thoughts. Final comment,
Yeah.
brief, quick final comment. Good. Well, a heart from Vernita, that'll do it. Thank you all.
Also, let's
thank
send
you,
this out to
Susan.
the entire membership, not just the listserv.
The entire, is there a different list from the entire?
There, yeah, not everybody's on the listserv or pays
Oh.
attention, but we can send messages to the entire membership
Great.
through the member clicks. And I'll work with Jadwiga to see how to do that.
And everybody here has a network within SCRA. So that's the most effective thing, you know. The reason someone volunteers is that someone they know asks them. That was one of the first things I learned, and that still remains one of the most important. So gets to Jerry's question about relationships. Thank you all. This is really just so exciting. Be well, and we'll meet in a month.
Right. Thank
Thanks,
you,
Tom.
Susan and Tom.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Everybody
appreciate
for
it.
Thank you
showing
all.
up.
Take care. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Tom, can you stay on a minute?